All right, Ken, you need to go dark. Turn off your video. There we go.
Yeah, just tell me when you want to turn it on.
Well, I will introduce you, and so you can do it at that point. All right, 10. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February edition of the HOA Open Village meeting. Our topic for today's session is our annual presentation of the state of the village. My name is Dennis Doherty. I am the HOA VP of Programs. I will be your host and moderator this afternoon. We have a very packed agenda for you today, covering many areas that we know are important to you as HOA members and villagers. We will start off with Ken Lickey, the president of the HOA, giving an update on what's going on with the HOA. Following that, Blau, the POA board president, will tell us what's going on at the POA. And then Winston will give us an overview of the village itself. Following that, we'll have Chief Jerry Doherty of the Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department tell about all the great things that have been going on there and their look towards next year. And then we have Carol DeForest, who is a library manager of the public library at Tellico Village. She'll fill us in on what's been going on and also some exciting things that they have planned upcoming in the new year. Finally, we're very pleased to have Teresa Harrell, who's a director of the Loudoun County Health Department. Teresa will walk us through some of the issues related to COVID and where things stand within Loudoun County. After all of the presentations are done, we will have a question and answer period. But a few things before we get started. First of all, out of respect for you, your COVID-19 safety, we're conducting this as an online webinar. It's a first for us, but we plan to use this format in future HOA activities to help keep you informed and engaged while keeping you safe. During this session, you'll be able to submit questions in writing using the chat function that you see on your screen during the presentations. When you do submit a question, first write the name of the person you want to direct the question to. And if it's no one special, then no need to leave a name. Do us a favor and please ask questions that are simple and straightforward to answer. We have a limited amount of time on the agenda, so we can't really address complex issues. We'll be holding, as I said, all the questions and answers until the end of all the presentations. We'll get through as many of them as we can during the session today. And in the event we're unable to get through all of them, then what we'll do is we will send the questions to the appropriate person and ask for them to respond. And then we will publish their responses in the HOA voice. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for replay on the Tellico Village Broadcasting website. Our first presenter is Ken Lickey, HOA president. Ken will give us an update on what the HOA accomplished last year and what's on the docket for 2021. Take it away, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dennis, for that introduction. Before I begin, I just want to call attention that we're calling this an open village meeting. In the past, we called these general meetings. And we thought it was important to change the name so everyone in the village realizes it's for everyone in the village. Everyone is welcome. So that's why the name changed. Just wanted to explain that. I also want to thank everybody for attending today on this. It's a cold and dreary day outside, so we're hoping for a big attendance today. Okay, Dennis, next slide, please. Next one as well then. Okay, the topics for today. With 2020 now thankfully in the rearview mirror, I think it's appropriate that we go back and take a look at 2020, our goals and objectives we had for last year, and then talk about the impact, obviously, that COVID-19 had on our operations as well as our financials. Then we'll talk about 2021 and our HOA goals we've set for this coming year. And in particular, we're going to focus on the HOA restarting social events. So this is the topics for today. Dennis, next slide, please. Okay, 2020 in a nutshell. This is kind of a big picture of what happened. I can say the HOA started off 2020, as everyone else did too, in great shape. We have a great team, and we had all our plans in place, a lot of social activities. And then along came COVID-19, and we all know what happened. And we spent a significant amount of time adapting our operations to COVID-19. And then obviously changes continued to happen, and we adapted again and yet again. So it was a very strange year, and continuous change was certainly called for, and we'll get into a little more detail now. So this is in a nutshell, but let's get a little more detail. Let's take that shell off and get into the nut here. So next slide, Dennis. Okay, so these are the 2020 goals we had established. The first one was to keep our members informed on high impact and controversial topics. Next one is we wanted to implement advocacy strategies on these issues impacting our members. As you can tell, we were focusing on advocacy at this time. The next one was conducting social activities. We thought we had it under control, little did we know. The fourth goal was to implement community best management practices. And as well as the last one was to increase efficiency of HOA roles. We realized we're all volunteers in the HOA, and we're trying to make it a little more efficient for everybody, because we realize the impact on everyone's time. So now let's get in a little more detail here. So the first goal, keep our members informed, especially on the high impact and controversial topics. Well, throughout the year, our members, our HOA board members and liaisons, we did continually meet with the POA and other key organizations in the village, although we had to do it in a different manner. Many of it was online Zoom meetings versus in person, but we still stayed in touch. We did create a webpage on Teleco Life to provide current COVID-19 information to homeowners. We did publish the Voice of the Village email, and we published it monthly, at least monthly, containing timely information on local and county updates. And as you saw, we published a number of special Voice of the Village emails during the year. And a few of those topics, special topics, were the US 2020 census. And I'm happy to say that we had the highest participation in community in Tennessee. We published a lot of candidate and voter information for the August 6th primary and the November 3rd general election. And again, not because all we did, other organizations as well, but in total, we had record voter turnout. So we appreciate that. And then we conducted some HOA open village meetings for all Teleco Village residents. We had the State of the Village meeting basically this time frame last year, and then COVID hit. But we did have a 2020 POA candidates forum this fall, which we did via webinar as well. So we were able to do that. So these are the topics we did, some of the goals we did, what we achieved in this particular area. Next slide, Dennis. The goals: identify and prioritize issues having current or future impact on HOA members. And a few of those were Asian carp. And we updated our members on this subject. We did submit letters to the TVA Board of Directors, directing them that are concerned over this topic and urging them to take action. We brought forward some drainage issues that homeowners were having to the POA, and they did make many improvements in this area. We identified some Kahidi-specific issues that we wanted to address. The first one being the highway, working with the Highway Safety Committee regarding the Niles Ferry intersection, and that is still ongoing. We haven't resolved that, but we're still working on that. Next one, Dennis. Okay, the social activities, and this is where obviously we took a big hit during this past year. On a positive note, HOA golf did remain active throughout the year, and a lot of great events. And I want to thank the POA golf team, and Chris Sykes and the whole group for keeping golf going like they did. It was a tremendous benefit for the village during the pandemic. Our social events were largely moved to the outdoor. And this is a picture of one of our outdoor events. This is a welcome orientation we had at the Toko Pavilion. Unfortunately, monthly socials were canceled. We had done a survey early in the year, and most of our members, not all, but most of our members said we should not have face-to-face monthly socials. And basically the HOA board was not willing to do them as well due to safety concerns. So we canceled the monthly socials. We did implement something new this past, you went a little fast, the post-event surveys we sent out this last year after events to gauge what the attendees, the participants, how they felt about activities and a way we could improve them going forward. So that was a big change for last year. Okay, next one, Dennis. The goal was to promote the implementation of community management best practices to the benefit of all villagers. As I mentioned earlier, we did survey our membership on COVID-19, and then we created some guidelines to guide how we and what we did as far as HOA activities, and that was posted on the HOA website. We worked with the POA on the design and implementation of the POA Help Spot, and from everything it's been reported, it's working very well. And if you haven't used it yet, I sincerely suggest you go on to the POA website and check out the Help Spot if you have any issues. It works very well. We brought to light some organizational issues on the RV parking lot, which several improvements have been made and more are coming along as well. And not really needed right now, but we did work with the POA implementing the meeting scheduling tool, which will be a big benefit in the future. Next one, please. Improve efficiency of the HOA. We had to rewrite our bylaws. Most of our voting and things like that were based upon meeting face-to-face. So we had to revise our bylaws so we could operate in a COVID-19 pandemic. So we updated our bylaws and the policies to meet current operating conditions. Okay. So how did COVID-19 impact us financially last year? And as you can see, social events, we have income, expense, and net income. We were in a loss position for social events, and that was a direct result of COVID, having us to cancel activities, some non-refundable, credit card fees, things like that. So that resulted in a loss of $5,000. On the membership fees, meeting expenses, admin, we were actually positive, almost $5,000. That was a result of having less actual face-to-face meetings, which are kind of expensive to put on. HOA golf was a bit for the positive for the year, and that was a result of not having their end of year celebration, which was canceled again to the pandemic. But all in all, we ended the year very favorably due to sound financial management, basically just a few dollars to the positive. So all in all, it did impact us, but we were able to manage this very successfully. Okay. So now I'll turn and talk about 2021 briefly here. And this is the executive council that's now in place, the board of directors of the HOA. And I'm not going to read all the names listed here, but I do want to point out the asterisk next to a lot of these names. These are people serving a second term in the same role. So many people step forward, including myself, which my wife says I'm crazy for doing it, but step forward to serve a second year, kind of not changing horses midstream, trying to get us through this these very difficult 2020 and 2021. So a lot of people stayed on board. I'd like to have a picture here of the entire board, but we have not met face to face as an entire team so far. Hopefully we'll have one coming up sometime this year. So this is the board officers and the standing committee chairs. All volunteers, Mike. Spending a lot of time on HOA. All right, let's talk about the 2021 goals and objectives. And by the way, these are all posted on the HOA website. And the order has been changed to reflect the importance of which we're focusing on this year. First one is realizing the importance of promoting social fellowship in our community. We're developing both in-person and virtual social events that can be conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a focus we are really intent on improving this year. We will continue to keep members informed on high impact and controversial topics. We will continue to implement advocacy strategies and prioritizing issues, having current or future impact on our members. We will continue to improve efficiencies by reducing non-essential activities and automating efforts as appropriate and available to do, realizing our time, all volunteers, and our time is valuable. And continue to promote and the implementation of community management best practices to benefit all our residents and homeowners. Again, the focus is going to be on social events. Okay, next slide. I want to talk about some of the major improvement, the major changes we've done reflecting this, since we can't meet face to face. So the online events we've put in place for February and March, there's a list here, and I think the list is quite substantial. And this is something new for the HOA to do. I broke this down into 3 basic areas: financial, life planning, history, and the food and arts. And as you can see, under each of these categories are many different events that are available for sign up in these areas. And we believe these are both educational, some are educational and some are just fun. So a lot of on financial is, last year and this year, what you can do, help you earn your taxes, making good sound financial decisions. The Medicare impacts the Medicare, making Social Security easier. And then tax planning changes through the 4 stages of retirement. Okay, so, and then history, we have a number of courses on genealogy, Civil War, all very interesting. Our reviews have been very good for these. On the food and arts, we have some cooking classes, arts and crafts, something a little different here on bluebirds. We've established some book clubs already, and from entertainment, the Knoxville Symphony Orchestra, we had they had a fundraiser with a live streamed event as well, in which we've opened up for signing up. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, we're trying something different in March. We're calling it an HOA virtual monthly social. We do plan on having face-to-face socials beginning in April, but for March, we're doing a virtual. And it would be conducted much like this meeting. And we will have, right at this point in time, we're going to have the speakers from the Art Guild, the Ladies Club, from our place, give an update. And I think the Coin Club may have had to cancel just today, but we may have some other speakers to come and speak as well. And we're going to do something else. We're going to have a virtual door prizes. So even though you're attending remotely, we're going to require requests for people to sign up. You don't have to sign up, but if you do sign up, you'll be entered into a virtual door prizes. And if you're online where we're having this virtual monthly social, you can win some of these prizes. They're great prizes I'm hearing. So this is something new we're trying, and hopefully it'll be very successful, and then pave the way for us to start meeting face to face in April. Okay, next slide, Dennis. Okay, these are upcoming in-person social events. In March, we're having a St. Patrick's Day party at the Tokyo Pavilion. We're having a trivia night, and these are all favorites, by the way. Members tell us they really enjoyed the trivia, and we're bringing back Singo as well in March. And then we're having a face-to-face class with limited people that can sign up for this. It's going to be limited to a small amount of people. Depending on the success of this, we'll have more of these. But introduction to Facebook, everything you wanted to know how to use Facebook, which would be at the Yacht Club. And then, as I said earlier, in April, we're going to have our first live at Tokyo social, getting it back started again in 2021. So these are the in-person, and we'll have many more. Our event coordinators are working on diligently to get more in-person social events. We realize, again, this is a priority for us this year. Okay, next one, Dennis. So in summary here, 2020 was a successful year based upon advocacy, but our social activities were greatly impacted and reduced by the pandemic. And for 2021, we're going to address the social side of this. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to restart as many events as soon as possible as feasible. And we'll continue to provide these social online events as well, educational and social and arts and crafts, things like that. And of course, we're not going to drop. We're going to continue our strong advocacy program during this year. So lastly, I'd like to just challenge you. What can you do to assist HOA in achieving our goals? First is volunteer. We're always needing volunteers. There's a lot of people involved with this. We can always use more people. So if you have an interest, please let your interest be known. Email us or talk to any of the board directors, please. And then you can join if you haven't renewed your membership or haven't joined yet the HOA, please do so. Your support is very important to us and helps us put on meetings such as this and other meetings and do we think are very helpful things for the entire Tellico Village homeowners. Okay, next. So this ends my section, and as Dennis said, there'll be a chance to ask questions at the end. So I'm gonna turn it back to Dennis.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for that great update. You know, the HOA navigated some tough times in 2020, like most organizations, but it has lots in store for 2021 as relief from the COVID restrictions continues. So exciting things lie ahead. Our next presenter is Rick Blau, the POA board president, and he'll give us an update on the POA's activities.
Thanks, Dennis. Go ahead and bring up the first slide if you would, please. I'm often asked about the process for electing board members, so I thought I'd give you a little background information. The POA board has 7 members. They're elected by property owners in staggered 3-year terms. These individuals are non-compensated volunteers who are motivated to serve their community. Board members are term limited, meaning that they can only serve 2 consecutive terms. So finding people who are qualified to serve and who wish to serve is a constant board responsibility. To that end, the board has a nominating committee, whose job is to serve as candidates to run for election for the board. The board's primary responsibilities are governance, strategic planning, and management oversight. Each year, 2 to 3 positions on the POA board become open. In November of 2020, 3 candidates stood for election by Tellico Village property owners for the 2 open seats that were available. If you notice on the slide, there's a list of who's on the board today and its officers. The board elects its own officers. The 7 people on the board are listed there, as well as the officers. In 2021, there will again be 2 openings on the board. Our recently approved election calendar lists the following key events in the next cycle. Acceptance of board applications will start August 2nd, and it'll run until September 3rd at 3 p.m. On September 15th, the board's election committee will meet to certify the candidates. The election begins on October 31st and runs until November 18th at noon. Typically, the HOA holds a candidate forum during the time before the election starts. Votes are tabulated by a third party, and results will be announced on November 19th at 2 p.m. The board will certify the election at its last meeting in December. And after that regular board meeting, the new board will convene in special session, during which the new board members are seated and the board elects its officers for the following year. I wanted to make sure everybody understands how folks become board members, and I want to encourage each of you to give some thought to helping your community by running for the board or serving on an advisory committee. Dennis, could you go to the next slide, please? So I want to talk a little bit about the board's objectives for 2021 and how they're derived. Beginning immediately after the election of board officers at the December special sessions, board members are asked to propose objectives for the following year. Those proposals are summarized and presented for board discussion at the first meeting of the new year. During the month of January, the objectives are finalized, and normally the board approves this objectives by the first meeting in February. This year, that occurred on February 3rd. This slide, has the objectives for this year. There are 5 of them. The first 2 were started last year, and they were intended to be 2-year objectives. So the first objective, and you're going to hear from our CEO shortly, but he's already told us that he plans on retiring at the end of 2022. So the board, the CEO reports directly to the board, and the board's responsibility will be to find a replacement for him. So that's a top priority for the board this year. We also want to continue development of the reserve funding and debt reduction strategies that we started last year. And we hope to complete that by the end of this year. And frankly, we would like to complete the reserve study before we enter the budget discussions for 2022. The next 3 are new. The board believes that communication with and education of villagers is among its highest imperatives, thus objectives 3 through 5. They are all, they all deal with communications and public relations strategies and education. The 3rd objective for this year is to enhance and expand communication strategies, including policies, platforms, and distribution, to ensure accurate and consistent messaging throughout the organization. And we want to get this done by the middle of the year. We also, number 4, we want to implement internal and external public relations and marketing strategies that increase community exposure and property owner satisfaction, enhance the Tellico Village brand, and cultivate a positive community culture. And we expect to do this by September. And finally, if you read next door, as I do, you find that there's a lot of information that people want that's really available. So what we want to do is develop an educational program for property owners to enhance their knowledge and understanding of the village's history, its operations, its finances, and its relation to the larger community in the state of Tennessee and Loudoun County. And we will attempt to do this by the middle of the year. Moving, and Dennis, I'm going to actually introduce Winston at this point. I want to introduce Winston Blazer. He's our Chief Executive Officer for the Tellico Village Property Owners Association. He's going to update you on how we fared in 2020, which we now call our COVID year, and where we stand as we enter 2021. So Winston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rick. Dennis, thank you for having me on, Ken. Appreciate it. My name is Winston Blazer. I'm the CEO of Tellico Village Property Owners Association. And my brief discussion today is going to be about 2020. My 27 years here at the POA, I've never seen a year like it. Don't want to. But the good news is the POA came out very good in operations, financially and operationally. I'm going to cover some of the more boring stuff first. We'll get down to the numbers. In our financial results for the year, our revenues were much greater than anticipated. When the COVID era started in late February and March, when we had to buckle down and start taking a good hard look at the effect that this could possibly have on the POA, the finance department, myself, did 3 different scenarios and presented them to the board. Not so bad, a bad, and a very, very bad prediction. The very bad prediction was pretty doom and gloom. And I'm very happy to report that maybe because we had prepared for this and we were taking necessary steps, it didn't happen. But anyway, our revenues exceeded what we thought we were going to do pretty significantly. We beat the revenues in a lot of different ways. As Ken had mentioned, our golf turned out to be a very shining star in the operation. Many courses shut down. Our people, which I'm very proud of Chris Sykes and his team, they found ways to stay within the state guidelines and keep the operation running. And our primary focus there was to give our property owners an outlet to get out and do something during this state of COVID lockdown. And they did an excellent job of that. I'll get into some rounds information, but just the revenue side of it was up over $400,000. Also, when we did our predictions of what possibly the COVID era would cause to the POA, we anticipated a downturn in housing and downturn in many different areas, but that turned out to be very wrong. Our water sewer volume was up significantly. I suppose it's mainly people had to stay home. People had to stick around the house, and therefore they took on jobs and things on their list that they'd put off for years, and maybe a lot of it was pressure washing. Our tank install volume went up significantly. Our building and permits was up very high, much greater than we had anticipated when we were going through our models of what the COVID would do to us. Our ACC permitting fees were up because of the same reason. We had almost 200. We had 208 homes permitted last year. One of the largest number of homes I can ever remember being permitted in the ACC process. So on the revenue side of things, it was a very good year. Turn to the expense slide now. Thank you. On the expense slide, we knew that the COVID was going to hit us in many different ways, and so we prepared the management team that you were going to be very tight-fisted with your wallets. You were going to watch your expenses, and you were going to be very prudent on your decisions on how you spent your budget money. And they did exactly that. We cut back on several projects, nothing that would negatively affect in any long-term fashion the maintenance of the village. We weighed out the pros and cons of all of those, but they did a very good job of reducing expenses in this time of very deep uncertainty. But the bottom line on all of this was the net income came out much better than back in March of 2020, much better than I had anticipated. And so I was very pleased with that. And then the last part of the financial news that I want to talk to is the balance sheet. For the financially oriented person, they know that is the kind of snapshot at that point in time of the operation. And if you'll turn to the next slide, there you go. On our cash, as you can see, the cash was very large compared to previous year of a little over 5 million. We sit at 7.8 million. Now there's a lot of components that go into that. The PPP loan, which was converted to a grant, is part of that. But a great deal of that cash came in from these additional revenue factors. Long-term debt was going down. During the year, we paid off the Wellness Center note. And then, as I mentioned, the PPP loan grant was in December of that year, we were notified that it was converted to a grant. So we had 1.2 million in loan, and then because we met all the criteria, that was turned into a grant. So that was a very favorable, very positive financial aspect to the POA operations. On the next slide, Dennis, the impact. Some of the highlights or negative impacts of the operation. The rec operation was severely impacted because of the COVID, because of monitoring. We had to, because of state guidelines, we had to monitor, we had to space out, we had to constantly clean to meet the ongoing guidelines the state put out to help prevent the spread of COVID. That cost us an estimated $85,000. Because of those changes to the normal rec operation And because of COVID fears, we had a loss of rec revenue of almost $300,000. So when you combine those two, you really see a major impact on the rec world as far as the COVID impact. On the total POA, besides rec, we had a cleaning cost somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 for just cleaning supplies, deep cleaning of buildings and public areas and so forth. Time off because of COVID protocol. When someone was exposed or a family member was diagnosed with the COVID, we had to restrict severely those employees being around other employee operations. Cost us $65,000. In the golf world, although the golf, hit it out of the ballpark as far as operations, had it not been for the tee sheet spacing and single card operation in the early phase of the COVID era, they would have even hit it, bigger, had a bigger splash on the income. But they had probably $200,000 plus they lost because of those two factors. Food service was another operation in the POA that was severely impacted by the COVID. As you recall, many restaurants that we typically in your life visited and so forth were shut down. And then when they did finally become available to attend, seating was limited because of 50% spacing. Capacity restrictions, the bars were eliminated, etc. And so the food service was extremely hard hit here in the POA world. The board made a conscious decision to keep food service kitchens open to run a delivery and to run food pickup operations. So our people that were shut in, who didn't want to get out, who didn't want to risk being exposed, would have an option for food service. So very good call, I think, all in all, by the board to continue to run that in spite of the fact that there was many days that the expenses exceeded the revenue. But nonetheless, viewing the dire situation for some of our property owners, some of the shut-ins, that was a very good move, and that kept people going. Some other things that I didn't prepare slides on, but I want to speak to. One is I'm very proud of the POA operation just in general. The people, the employees that work here at the POA that man the various operations, the ones that you would consider in the trenches, they didn't flinch at this COVID-19. They were there. We hardly, for the property owner that is not fully engaged or aware or in the gearbox of the POA, hardly would have recognized that anything was going or being undone or not fully operational. Very proud of our staff. I'm very proud of the way that they just grabbed the bull by the horns and ran with it. Many of our operational changes came from our employees, were the ideas and suggestion of our employees. And we have a good set of managers that just they know to listen. And so very proud of that. Golf rounds, unbelievable 103,000 rounds were accumulated last year. That is 28,000 rounds more than 2019 when it was a normal year. Now, a lot of people could say, well, that was forced play. That was the only game in town, no pun intended. But I think a lot of that had to do with our staff kept it interesting. Our staff worked very hard to keep the courses open, keep the safety up. For example, you didn't pull the pins, you putted towards the pins, but you never had any touch points that could be contaminated. They continuously cleaned the carts, and I think people felt very safe in our world of golf, and therefore they participated and utilized it. 103,000 rounds versus 75,000 rounds in the prior year is an outstanding feat. In marketing, Beth and the marketing team did an outstanding job there. There was 208 permits for 2020. There was 153 POA lots sold in 2020. This represents a significant amount, a significant gain for the POA. Those were POA lots that were sitting on the books, generating no assessment revenue, virtually dead to the operation, so to speak. 153 will generate, for this year, those 153 will generate $269,000 of assessment money. Those 153 will have many homes built on them, and those homes will generate additional food service revenue, golf revenue, various operational revenues, water, sewer, of that sort. So it shows a good, healthy, vibrant property owner association, and kudos to our marketing bunch for doing this. At the POA board meeting yesterday, there was a year-end marketing update given. A lot of details covered in that. I'd encourage all to go back and review that meeting. But one point that stood out to me in that marketing review was, since 2016, the average square foot of homes in Telco Village has gone up 23%, which equates to a significant gain of almost $80,000. So that's a very good sign, very healthy sign. And I know there's many associations out there that would love to have those kind of numbers. Another area I'm very proud of is public works. As you all know, for the property owners that live here, if you don't have water and sewer system, if you don't have those two, you're in real trouble. If you don't have the brush pickup and leaf pickup, things don't look quite as nice, quite as sharp, quite as tidy as we'd like in our neighborhoods. Nonetheless, public works, being the most labor intensive of departments, had a very hard year when it came to the COVID time away from work because of COVID protocols. I don't want to refer to it as sick time, but when they were exposed, we would not let them come and expose the rest of the crew. But anyway, significant number of days were missed due to this COVID protocol and safety measures, but yet the public works operation didn't miss the lick hardly. They kept on working, they kept on keeping the operation going. Very proud of that bunch of men and women. Did an excellent job, and I think it's something that all property owners should be very proud of, to know that they've got employees of that caliber. The rec department, very proud of them because they really took it hard too. As I mentioned in the financial segment, they lost a lot of money in revenue. They incurred a lot of additional expenses because of protocol of COVID expenditures, things that you have to do if you're going to stay open, things required by the state. And yet they turned that lemon into lemonade, so to speak. The rec department created 4 new pocket parks throughout the village. They created 6 more miles of trails, which I've noticed a significant usage in the amount of trail walkers in the village. And they also created a outdoor 6-hole disc golf amenity up there near the wellness center. So, even though they were limping in certain areas, it didn't keep them from creating and bringing in new amenities and new things for people to do on the outdoors and enjoy themselves, which was much safer than being indoors with people. And then the last department is the food service department. They too had it exceptionally hard. Many weddings canceled, many functions canceled, as Ken referred to. In prior years, there's many HOA socials. Those were canceled. There was many things that the different clubs and so forth throughout the village like to use, and those were canceled. But the yacht club managed to stay through. They lasted. We will look for an uptick this year. I think with people getting vaccinated, I think with the winter weather subsiding, warmer weather right around the corner, people getting out more, I think people are going to be more comfortable going to the restaurants and so forth. So I'm looking for a very positive restaurant operation in 21. But anyway, that's kind of the summation of the 2020 COVID year from the POA operations aspect. And anyway, it's glad it's behind us, and 21 is going to be even better. Dennis, back to you.
Well, thank you, Winston and Rick, for that great overview of the situation with the village. Obviously, it's been a tough year for everyone, and it's comforting to know that after this year, the adjustments to both the POA as well as the village itself is made. Right now, where we stand, we're coming out of this in a firm financial footing, which is very comforting for all of us. Okay. All right. We now welcome Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department Chief Jerry Doherty. Chief Jerry will take us through the many important things that happened at the department and the village during 2020, as well as a view to the priorities for 2021. Take it away, Jerry.
Thank you, Dennis. You can go to next slide. These are the 8 topics that I'll be trying to highlight for everyone. Next one. This is the slide. These are the figures that as of 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, we monitor the number of cases in Loudoun and Monroe County and Knox County, the 3 counties, for the number of cases and also the number of deaths that have occurred. And as you'll see at the right 2 slides, 2 rows up from the bottom, for the year total in Loudoun County, we had 4,200 cases and we experienced 37 deaths. In the month of January, we had 1,500 cases and 22 deaths. And February thus far, we had 246 and 3 deaths. Trends are looking good from what we're seeing. As you can see, November, the number of cases, just looking at Loudoun County alone, we had 637. December was 1,862. And then January, we hit 1,000. And February so far, 246. And if you try to double that, which we have been looking at in the past, we could come in something less, far less than 1,000, in the 500, 700 cases. So, and the 14-day rolling average for new cases in Loudoun County is finally in the teens. And for the state, it's finally in lower than 2,000 cases per day. And the number of new cases may be down because of the lack of testing. Okay, Dennis. And this is a table, shows the number of calls that the fire department responded to over the past 4 years on a monthly basis. We had an 8% increase in 2020 over 2019. We started to see the effects of COVID-19 in November and through January with the monthly increases. In December, we responded to 13 positive calls in the village. Thank goodness no one in the department got the virus. Next. This is the graph showing data, but on a yearly basis. In 2018, we entered into an automatic mutual aid agreement with the other volunteer fire departments in Loudoun County. What this means is that on all confirmed structural fires in the county, 4 fire departments will be responding to the call. Yes, that is an increase of the number of others that you'll see. That's why the red bar is slightly increasing from 2018 to 2020, but it's increasing the skills of our firefighting within the department. In 2020, we responded to 26 automatic mutual aid calls in the county. We are now recognized for our firefighting skills and our equipment. And at no time do we leave the villagers without proper manpower and coverage. Next. And this is a copy of a current organization chart for the department. We have 31 active members at the moment. Okay. And just the response time due to COVID, back in March, we knew the impact that COVID was going to have on us, and we came up with what we called a TEMSCON, Telco Emergency Management Operations Plan, and we elected to go to one response vehicle on the road at all times, and that went into effect in 1st of May, and with that, prior to that, when an emergency call came in, it was on average 4.3 minutes a first responder would be at your front door. And with the COVID impact, and at the end of 2020, the data at the end of 2020, that response time jumped to 5.9 minutes for the first person to be at your door, because we have limited number of responders to protect the department and to protect the villagers. We have had 8 calls that occurred on top of one another since the TEMSCON 1 was implemented. And with that, the second vehicle was placed into service and responded to the call. Somebody would stop by at the station, pick up the vehicle, and respond to the call. The plan is to maintain one vehicle in service until there is a shift in COVID, and I'll address that a little bit later. And just a few of the highlights of 2020. In March, the department was audited by the Insurance Service Organization, an independent organization that evaluates all the fire departments across the state and the country. In June, we were notified that we received a 4X rating for the next 5 years. The lower the number, the better the score. Our department has the highest rating of the volunteer departments in the county. We are right behind the 2 paid departments that have a 2X and a 3X. We have implemented the Knox box system, providing the fire department quick and secured access to all the larger buildings, the POA buildings, the churches, the neighborhood, premier residents. The next phase is to reach out to the banks and the commercial establishments, and this is also available to the residents within the village. What it is there is a box that is on the side of the building or the side of your house, and it is secured, and only one key will open that box. And inside that box, you can put, what we find is the keys for the neighborhood. When we go in there, we have a key that we can open up any door within the neighborhood. That key is controlled, it's recorded in a computer, and that key has to be returned back before you can close the box and leave the scene. So it's a very secure system used throughout the United States. The next one is we have implemented numerous joint training sessions with the other departments in the county for rescue and search and rescue and confined space. We have a group of people right now going through the Firefighter 1 training in Lenore City. In the September-October time frame, we replaced our Utility 126. That was the white truck, little white van. We bought a new used Rescue 126. It's a little bit more versatile for fire and emergency medical services. In October, we were one of the 4 departments to receive a gift from the Priority Ambulance of the automatic chest compression device, also known as Thumper. The device provides precise, consistent chest compressions in to a cardiac patient in the time of need. It allows for the paramedics to tend to the patient while en route to the hospital. And lastly, the department is in the final stages of completing a strategic plan. Once completed, it will allow the department to grow and move forward in the fire and emergency medical services that we provide to the village. And no one in the department in the year 2020 contacted the virus. However, after the first of the year, we had 2 people being trained and they were exposed due to working out at a facility outside of the village. Next. This is a listing of your friends and neighbors that are members of the department and their roles within the department. Next. The way the fire department is organized and has been organized is that for anyone who wants to join the department, they had to become a first responder or emergency medical responder. And if you also had a desire to do fire, you could do that. So we were very EMS focused and not too strong on fire. In the past 5 years, we have really had a change. We have people move into the village that are retired firefighters and have a lot of experience, and they want to join. And then some people are saying, well, I don't want to do EMS anymore. I had enough of that in the pay department. I'd rather work on the fire side. So what we have done, next slide, is we have basically reorganized the fire department. We have 2 divisions. We have a fire division and an EMS division. And under the fire division, we have a group of structural interior firefighters and a group of fire ground technicians. And then on the EMS side, we have the lowest, excuse me, the introductory first responder is the EMR, emergency medical responder. Then you could take more training to become a B EMT, emergency medical technician B class, and then an advanced emergency medical technician. Some people that are over in the blue boxes want to do some of the red. Some people that are in the red want to do some of the blue. So we have what is called a dual role in the department. So we can accommodate anyone that would like to, where their interests are, we can accommodate those individuals right now. Next. For our strategic plan, we had to implement some policies and procedure changes within the department, and they were completed in October timeframe. We're in the final stages of completing the job descriptions for all the new roles and what the expectations are for those roles. And the implementation plan is work in progress. We're rolling it out slowly, and our target is to have a complete package document by the end of the first quarter. Next. And just a couple suggestions moving into the 2021. Smoke alarms. We have seen a rise in fire alarms and smoke detectors chirping. The 2 suggestions are, one is to change your batteries twice a year with a brand name fresh battery. Dollar General is a nice store, but their batteries are not good batteries. Change them out twice a year. Daylight saving times is a great time to do it. And then also, while you're doing that, look at the date of manufacture on the detector when you are changing the batteries out. NFPA guidelines say replace your smoke detector entirety every 8 to 10 years. They may look good and new, but they're not. We had one incident last year responding to the same address for chirping calls 3 times. The house was only 4 years old. On the 3rd call, we removed the detectors and found out that the units were 8 years old. The contractor installed old smoke detectors. If you have an alarm system in your home, make sure that the address is correct. We make with the lane, place, trace, and roads, double check for accuracy. We also make sure that the digits are correct. Is it proper 208 or is it 280? Work with your alarm company, make sure that is correct, because when they call the 911 center, that's what information is going to be provided to them, and it could be minutes and seconds are very important. And lastly, a plug for our 911 center. The first link is for automatic notifications. If there's an issue within Loudoun County or in Tellico Village, the 911 center can generate an automatic text or phone call to certain neighborhoods, certain areas of Tellico Village, advising you of an incident. So reach out to the 911 center. That's one of the links there. It's called the sign up page, reach and sign up page. And the last one is for advisory. The sheriff, EMS, or fire department needs to get into your home and you're unable to get to the door to unlock it, we need to know the information of how we can get into your house. If you have a keypad on your garage door, or a neighbor has a key, or if you have one hidden, fill this form out. 911 will notify us via phone call for the first responder that's there, saying the code for the garage is this number, or look under this milk can for the key to the house, or the neighbor next door to the right has the key. That's minutes and seconds are critical in response time for emergency calls. Next. If there are questions, is anyone in the village that would like more information on what we do or might be interested in joining, stop by the station any Monday morning between 8:30 and 11 to chat with one of our members of the department during our weekly inspection and maintenance of the vehicles, or just give me a call. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for all the fantastic work that you and your team of first responders are doing to keep us and our village safe. We're very fortunate to have such a professionally run and staff volunteer fire department. You know, just knowing that the Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department is on watch 24/7, 365 days a year helps me and my family sleep at night. And I'm sure I speak for other villagers that the comfort that you all bring is just extraordinary. All right. Next up is Carol DeForest, the Public Library at Tellico Village Library Manager. Carol and her team have worked very hard to adjust and make reading and other materials available to our residents during this COVID shutdown. Reading is obviously one of the greatest ways of spending time at home when you're restricted going out and socializing. Carol has some great news in store for us as the library is looking forward to 2021 and how they can transition into offering more educational and informational rich activities for the village. Take it away, Carol.
Thank you. As he said, I'm Carol DeForest, the manager of the library. I am a county employee, and our library is one of 5 libraries in the county. Actually, I only have one assistant. She's part-time, and we have 40 different volunteers that help out at various times, so that we really run it on only 1.5 staff. I'd just like to give you an idea of some of the library services that we're offering. Despite what some people may think, the library is not boring. Our motto is that we are way more than books. Of course, we keep a current book collection. Plus, we have several special collections on local history, consumer health, and a significant large print section. We carry the Knoxville News Sentinel, News Herald, Wall Street Journal, and Value Line Investment Service, plus 80 magazine titles. We actually have a children's section that is very inviting with beanbag seating and stuffed animals. Before COVID hit, I offered a rich variety of classes and lectures on a regular basis in the library, including local history, genealogy instruction, gardening, legal help, astronomy, health and wellness, Social Security, iPad classes, and many others. I do plan to start these up in-house again as soon as it is safe to have large groups in our conference room. Until then, I am partnering with HOA to offer some of these lectures remotely using Zoom. Many of my regular presenters are very enthusiastic about doing these again, this time through the Zoom. Ken Lickey and Dennis Doherty are taking care of the technical aspects for us. So far, we've had several presentations, and as you saw in the presentation before, there are more planned. Now, electronic books or ebooks have become very popular, and libraries are involved in this. The Tennessee State Library offers a free ebook service called Tennessee Reads. Anyone in Tennessee with a library card to a Tennessee library can log in and download ebooks onto various devices at no charge. Our library has joined a special program to give our patrons better access to these ebooks. In other words, avoiding long wait lists that can happened quite a bit. With grant money and private donations, I have been purchasing ebooks which become part of this Tennessee Reads system, but belong to our library, and our patrons have priority access to them. So this is a nice benefit for the community. We rent movie DVDs and books on CD. We have a large collection of educational DVDs, which are free to check out in areas such as history, travel, a lot on travel, health and wellness, biographies, religion, nature, and science. Many new residents here are very interested in Tellico Village history and the history of the area around here, the local history. We have a wealth of information available on this in the library. You may not know that several years ago, we started lending telescopes at no charge to the public. We have 3 telescopes that are lightweight and easy to use. We check them out with instructions, star charts, and other information. They are always popular during the summer and the holidays when families are visiting. We are the only library in Tennessee providing this service. We also have another unique lending service of literacy backpacks for children in all age groups. These are also very popular during times when families are visiting. There are 12 different themed packs that each include books, DVDs, puzzles, and toys to keep your visiting grandchildren busy. The library has a homebound delivery service, a volunteer who delivers materials to people who cannot get to the library, then picks them up and returns them to us. In addition, we have volunteers that take materials to local assisted living and nursing home facilities. Fundraising is important as our library is privately owned and funded. Our Friends of the Library 501c3 organization hosts a number of fundraisers every year to raise money to pay for the mortgage and utilities on the building and cover the maintenance costs. The annual Friends of the Library memberships we receive from patrons also contribute to the facility maintenance. We are continuing with our mini book sale, mini MINI book sale fundraisers, holding them 5 times this year, starting at the end of March. We always welcome donations of books, DVDs, CDs, and puzzles to use in our book sales. We had to close the library during 2020 for 2 months, and again, briefly in the first part of this year. We are back open now. During the times we were closed, we were still staffed with myself and my assistant, and we offered benchside pickup service during this time. It was very popular. People were very appreciative of that, so that was nice to hear. For future planning, I would like to look into more alternative lending models, and I need to continue to acquire funds on a regular basis to maintain our ebook purchasing, as ebooks are really the coming thing now. Thank you.
Okay. Carol, thank you for all that great news. You know, Tellico Village is very fortunate to have such a great resource available so close to home. And you and your team have really, I know, worked overtime to try to figure out the best way to keep that resource available to us as we all struggle through the COVID situation. All right, next up, we're very fortunate to have with us today Teresa Harrell. Teresa is the director of the Loudoun County Health Department. Teresa has taken time away from what I'm sure you can imagine her busy schedule is, and to update us on the latest news on COVID-19 in Loudoun County related to COVID mitigation, and vaccination, and where this is all headed. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be with you guys today and to give you an update, kind of where we are. And I was just thinking a moment ago as we were talking about in a lot of your updates, talking about how COVID has affected so many things in our lives. It was only probably a year ago this month in February that we first heard the word COVID or coronavirus. So I will be honest, it's been an extremely long, exhausting year for our healthcare workers and definitely for our public health staff. So I wanted just to kind of give you a brief update. I'm the director of the Loudoun County Health Department as well as the Monroe County Health Department. And I've been with the department for 38 years. Never in my 38 years have I've ever dealt with such an issue, a virus. We've gone through lots of things through the years. You know, we've gone through West Nile, we've gone through the smallpox scare, we've gone through, you know, a lot of different public health issues. But this one definitely is one that we will not forget anytime soon, for sure. Once we get through it, we're all in this together. I guess this is the first slide. Yes. Oh, yeah. We're all in this together, and this has been something that I guess that we've seen through this past year, how our lives have changed, and in the reaching out to folks to let them know that the only way we can reduce the spread of this virus is to, you know, a lot of different preventive activities, that it has to be a concern of everyone. It's not just a concern of people in, you know, healthcare field. It's got to be everyone. I guess the first thing, looking at last year when this all came to us, that's how highly contagious the virus is. And we see this, have seen through the last year too. So many people tested positive and continue to test positive that have no symptoms. They're asymptomatic. I've even had staff members, you know, that had a positive, and they were like, well, I don't have a fever. I don't have, you know, any symptoms. But regardless, they can still test positive. It's a highly contagious. So if we continue to follow carefully the guidelines, then we know that we can slow the spread down. And if by slowing the spread, and then when we get to talking about vaccinations, we want to definitely protect those who are most at risk. And so following these different preventive measures that we can take. Okay, next slide. So what are some of the personal strategies? Okay, the next personal strategies, and you guys, you have heard this, oh my goodness, since the very beginning. And I've always said, it's basically what our moms taught us to do. Wash our hands often. Avoid close contacts with others. Stay at home if you're sick. Covering coughs and sneezes. Wearing a face mask. Cleaning and disinfecting on a regular basis. And you've heard this now for the past 10 months. That's not going away. Even if people are vaccinated, we still got to continue to do all this because of new variants from other countries, from South Africa, from Brazil. There's other viruses out there that can be a threat to us. And also too, just, you know, the basic hygiene of, you know, washing our hands and the face mask, and, you know, just to protect ourselves from the COVID-19 as well. Okay. If we look at Loudoun County, and I was thinking about this a second ago too, our numbers are different than when I actually put together the slide presentation on Sunday. Right now in Loudoun County, as of yesterday, I think Jerry gave that too, is we had 5,512 cases. Actually, I think that was a little different on that slide. Inactive cases, 5,259. Inactive cases, those are the cases that have gone through quarantine and have been released. So they're considered inactive. We have tested 28,498 folks that have been negative. Right now in Loudoun County, we have 191 active cases. Basically, what that means, those are people that have had a test and are in quarantine. So they're considered an active case. Today, as of yesterday, we have had 62 deaths. That's gone up actually, unfortunately, one death since Sunday. So we have been monitoring. And if you have been during this past year, kind of keeping up with the Tennessee Department of Health website. It is a wealth of information. If you go on and there's a new COVID dashboard that you can actually look every single day at the county, just select the county and it will give you the number of new cases. It will give you all those statistics that I just, gave you. And there's actually another part of it that you can go and download different databases that you can look up the number of students between the ages of 5 and 18, the age group, which age group have had the number of COVID cases, which age group is the most. There's just a lot of information that you can look up on the website. So what are some of the public health strategies? Well, first off, what we're doing, and this has actually changed today, we are doing drive-through testing. If you've been to the health department, we're where there's like 3 city streets that we have actually been blocking a lot this summer because of our testing. We're testing every single day. That changed to 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday. We actually just got an email was within the last couple of hours that we're going to be going down to 1 day per week testing. Now, the reason for that is because the demand. In Monroe County today, we only tested 13. There were days we tested 100, 120, 50, 80, 100 in Loudon every single Tuesday and Thursday, but we have not had the demand. So they really want us to focus on the vaccinations. And there's so many providers now that are providing rapid tests, and those tests have gotten so much better over the past year. As far as being valid tests, for a positive. So that's one of the ways that, our public health strategies. The other way that we are keeping track, so to speak, and monitoring COVID-19 is the contact tracing and monitoring. Basically, what that is the process of interviewing a case to verify the presence or the absence of symptoms, and then also to ensure compliance with the quarantine or the isolation requirements. I have a staff member in each of my counties that are contact tracers. I'll be honest, I haven't hardly seen them since April of last year. It has been an all-consuming 24/7 almost job. Basically, when they're calling every single person, we have the database is called the MBS, and that is every single person that tests positive goes into that database. They are given cases from that, and then that's when they call and they follow up to make sure that the person is, and then also to see who in their household. A lot of the cases are considered probable cases because they're household contacts. And then it's interesting, husband and wife, one can be positive, do the quarantine 10 days, and then, be negative. The crazy thing about this virus is how it affects every single person differently. So I think it's the scary part too, that the unknowns. So the contact tracing started out with, tracing the person that was positive and then calling the contacts. Well, it didn't take long for that it was too much. Really, there was too many contacts, too many people, not enough workers to do that. So basically now they touch base with the case. So we do this in order to identify individuals who develop the symptoms. And most importantly is to make sure that they are isolating, basically to prevent further spread of the virus. And that's where some of the things over the past months have gotten really hairy because, people, maybe they go out or they go different places and when they should be in quarantine, or they're in groups and therefore the spread. So contact tracing, and this is something public health has been doing for many, many, many years. This isn't a new activity for us because we have contact traced with sexually transmitted diseases, with our hepatitis, with TB. So this is something that public health, that we do on a regular basis. Okay. This is kind of an older slide. This has kind of changed, but it kind of gives you the idea of when a contact tracer is talking to a case, and when we were looking about how many days that they needed to quarantine, they look at the last contact with the person that's had COVID-19, or if they've come in contact, and then they count. Now it was 14 days. Now it's a 10-day quarantine. Some of the school systems actually stayed with the 14, and that was up to them, just because we saw many cases where people actually developed the virus or developed symptoms like on day 12 or 13. It was concerning to us when the CDC did change it from 14 to 10 because of, seeing cases that were that did actually develop, into the latter part of the quarantine. So what is the difference between quarantine and isolation? Well, basically, isolation separates sick people from the contagious disease from people who are not sick. Quarantine separates and restricts the movement of people who were exposed to contagious disease to see if they become sick. So in a lot of the things with the cases, some people with household cases, they could actually quarantine away from the other person. They said, okay, I'm going to stay downstairs for my 10 days as long as you weren't sharing an entrance, an exit, the same bathroom, same, utensils, that kind of thing. And a lot of families did do that and the other person did not. So, but we heard those words so much over the past year. So the next part is looking at, okay, we know there's a virus. How do we do this? With our vaccine phases, and all this happened, the rollout of the vaccine. And one of the things I think it's important to understand, there's so many opinions about the vaccine. Should I take it? Should I not take it? It was developed so quickly, in a lot of theories around it. One of the things to keep in mind is there was so much money put into the manufacturing and the making of the vaccine. That's one of the things that was really to speed up the process. So it is safe. I'm almost a month out with my second dose. So I've been fine. I haven't had any problems. But a lot of people I know are still kind of on the fence. But if you look back and you think about, I remember, and I'm going to tell my age now, but I remember being a little girl and mom taking me to the school to have the smallpox, vaccine. So if you think back, we've had smallpox, measles. There's been a lot of vaccinations that we've received over the years. With the rollout, Tennessee and most states looked at the phases that we would, because looking at which group of folks were the most likely to come in contact and who are the folks that are most at risk. So started out with phase 1A1, which we started in December. December the 21st was actually the very first vaccine we gave, which we gave to healthcare workers, we gave to first responders, police, the folks in that category. And also in that category was looking at those folks that were 75 and older. And the reason for that is because if a 75-year-old gets COVID, they are more likely to end up in the hospital or die, as opposed to a 25-year-old. So that's what we want to do. We want to get that population vaccinated. And the next phase, which we're in, and well, we're actually already to the 65. We're still working the waiting list, and we can talk about that, but is the outpatient healthcare and workers with direct exposure, also including the mortuary services as well. The next phase, which you just heard about, that the governor released information, I think it was on Tuesday, the 65 and over, which is considered 1B, and that's also child care staff, K through 12 teachers, any other first responders, and operations personnel. So that's the phase that we're in right now. We're continuing to work the 75, the 70, and then 65. And also we'll be having a pod point of dispensing for teachers as well. Right now, the good news about vaccines, if we can go to the next slide. The good news about vaccine availability, I'll be honest, in the beginning, when we first got our first shipment and we started this, it was a little crazy because there were so many people wanting the vaccine, which we were kind of surprised because we'd heard so much negative, but everybody wanted to be protected. And we just had a limited supply of vaccine. And at the health department, we only have 3 RNs. So our staffing and we're getting some help, and that's great. But, in the beginning, it was tough. We were the only game in town. We're not the only game in town. Now we have local pharmacies. We have Walgreens, CVS, Walmart. Walmart is the biggie. So those providers are able to dispense the vaccine as well. We are now off-site with our vaccination because we were just kind of causing a little bit of congestion there in the city. So we are at Loudon Municipal Park, just off Highway 72. I'll be honest, it's really working great. Staff is doing an excellent job. Folks just come in. We have 2 big tents set up. You drive through, it doesn't take as long. Then you just park in the parking lot, wait your 15 or 20 minutes to make sure you have no side effects. It's working very, very well. I will give kudos to staff. They've been out in the snow. They've been in the rain. They've been in, 20 degrees this week. They've really done an excellent job. So we're going to continue to be at the park. So we, one of the things too and I know this will definitely, you guys may have some questions about this. It started out, the state had one link. It was Sign Up Genius. And then we have another link. Then now we're going to another link or another system of scheduling. This will be, third time's a charm, it will be a better system in the sense that people will actually be able to go in, fill out their paperwork, choose their time. It'll pull up and you'll be able to see what time you want to schedule your appointment. And, basically we're using iPads. We'll be able to do all that with a little bit of higher tech than what we have been. So we're excited about that. We don't go live on that till April in Loudon. It's actually live, I think, right now. But as far as the way, I mean, us using it at the Loudon County Health Department, but people can actually go on and sign up. So it's been a journey. I'm going to be very honest with you. It's been a journey. It's been one that I'm so proud of staff. They've worked so hard. We're not at the end of the tunnel yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I think the vaccine is going to be, first off, it's not a cure-all. It's going to help prevent people from getting sick. They say that Pfizer vaccine is like in the 90s percentile, 99, 98 effective. The Moderna is effective, 2 shots, both of them 2 shots, even though the CDC came out with something a little different today on that. But it's, we can't let our guard down. We can't let our guard down. We don't know enough about the vaccine. I think people still need to be very guarded about making sure they wear their mask, washing their hands. You know, I feel safe, but if I'm going into a crowd that's not my immediate family, I don't. You know, I mean, if you've got your bubble of folks, your family or neighbors that you know, that's one thing. But when you go to, you know, in a crowded situation, it's different because you don't know if somebody is asymptomatic and then even though you have the vaccine. So I think that's just something we need to definitely think about, that it's not the cure-all, it's helping us. But from what we understand, the vaccine is going to be pretty much like a flu shot, that next year you'll come back for a booster every year, that we'll probably have to get a shot, just like a flu shot and a pneumonia shot, shingle shot. So, well, shingle shot, you don't have to all the time, but, you know, so it's going to be something that I think we will be doing annually. So anyway, it's a lot of information. I mean, that the presentation, not so much in depth, but it really is, there's lots of moving pieces to this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, it's not just one part. There's so many different parts to it. And it is definitely a lot. So I will definitely, I guess when you take questions, then I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa, for that most informative presentation. Obviously, COVID-19 has impacted our lives in so many ways. It's very important for all of us to follow the safety recommendations from all our healthcare providers. It's really through this rigor and self-discipline that we can accelerate getting COVID under control and our lives back to normal. With that, I'd like to move to the question and answer section. You may recall when we open it up, we asked that you submit those questions via the chat function. Hopefully you've submitted those questions. We'll get through as many questions as we can during the time that we have remaining. If we're unable to get to all the questions, or if the question is complex, we will send to the speakers your questions and ask for after the meeting and asking them to respond. And we'll publish those responses in the HOA Voice newsletter. So we're very pleased to have Christy Bruns, our HOA board member and coordinator of our HOA welcome orientation, to facilitate us through this session. Thank you, Christy.
Dennis. Thanks, Dennis. We do have one question, and it is for Teresa. When will Loudoun County start providing vaccines for the 65 plus?
We are actually taking folks on the waiting list for that now. Now, the thing about the waiting list, and I will definitely send the new link. I can send that to you guys to send out. it will already let you go ahead and sign up for the 65. We're still working on the 70 and 75, but we can go ahead and start our waiting list. And when you look at the waiting list, if you look and it says, oh, we got 6,000 people, we don't. Each sheet that we pull off when we finally get it from our regional office, I mean, like example, yesterday, there were 60 names on a sheet for a waiting list. Call every single name, and there's only 4 people that wanted an appointment because they'd already gotten their vaccine. So that's kind of made it a little bit, it's with our appointment system, we spend a lot of time calling folks that have already, received the vaccine somewhere else. So until they go in and they clean up our waiting list from the regional level, it's looking like there's a lot more folks on there than there really is.
So it sounds like it's pretty fluid, and if you should
yes.
probably go on and sign up.
Yes.
And get on the waiting list.
Correct.
Okay. Our second question is, how is the COVID vaccination backlog being reduced?
We are, as far as like the waiting list.
That's what I would assume, yes, but.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're currently doing. We're working it, and what we've told folks, and this sounds like I'm not definitely talking out of both sides of my mouth, but that it's hard to get into the health department as far as calling on the phone. We encourage people to try to do that, and we're not saying, oh, well, you can call in and get an appointment, but a lot of times we on our end, we don't realize that somebody has been on the waiting list since December, and just because of the way the system has been set up. So that's why this new system is going to be so much better. So, if people can, if they can try to call the health department, I'll be honest, we've been trying to, if we get folks that say, oh, I've been on the waiting list, since December, and, we try to go ahead and put them in a schedule that, in the next few weeks.
Would it be then possible to say that you're going to provide the link to us?
Yes.
And anybody who's interested in getting the vaccine should use that link and sign up via the waiting list.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Now, who would I need to send that to? Just out to Dennis?
Yes, that would be perfect.
Okay,
Dennis would be a great point person.
Okay.
That's it for questions on the live chat. We can wait a minute. I do have one question, again for Teresa. Does Loudoun County provide the rapid COVID test?
No, we don't. We just have the PCR, which is the nasal swab that's sent to the lab. Okay,
thanks. And then I also have one other question while we're waiting to see if another one comes in. And that's for Chief Doherty. I know with COVID, probably the CPR and the Stop the Bleed classes were sort of put on hold. Do you have a plan or any thoughts on when maybe those classes might be provided to the village again?
We're looking and hoping for starting something in April timeframe. We had to conduct training classes for our new class of EMRs, and we had to do it with the windows open and the doors open, and it was 22 degrees inside the building. So it was not conducive for training and learning. So we're hoping that by the April 1st timeframe, we'll be able to reach back out to the community for CPR classes and Stop the Bleed.
Great, thanks. Yeah, warm weather would be appreciated. We do have another question. If masks are not, I think this is probably for Teresa, if masks are not so important, if masks are so important, why are they not mandatory in Loudoun County to protect residents, healthcare workers, and store employees, etc.?
Well, I really have no control over that. Department of Health cannot, we can't mandate that to, what am I trying to say, industry or, that has to be to private industry or private stores, or that's basically, all we can do is encourage.
Great, thanks.
Mhm.
And then I think we've got this answered, but link for the current waiting list. I believe Teresa, you'll probably provide that to Dennis, and then
Yeah.
most probably, I maybe don't want to speak out of turn, then we will post that on the HOA website or where appropriate, and then we'll let people know.
Yes.
Is that
Okay.
Chris, I'd like to jump in there just for a second here. The websites that Teresa talked about with the information, all the links she has are all available on Teleco Life. There's a COVID link, and all the information is out there. And we'll add that in that same area. Once we get it
Right.
from, we'll add it there.
Super. So people can go find that link to sign up for the waiting list on Teleco Life.
And a lot of this information would also likely come out in the POA telegram as well. We'll make sure they get it too.
Great, thanks.
I did have another question for Teresa. I hate we seem to be picking on her, but obviously.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. So now we have other pharmacies that are opening up that have vaccine. How is that being allocated between the different pharmacies? That's a question that people have asked me. I mean, how if the waiting list, you have a waiting list, they have a waiting list, and all these people have waiting lists, how are they being allocated to do the best?
Mm-hmm. I think, from my understanding, is once the vaccine comes down from the federal government, they're the first in the beginning. All the CVS and the Walgreens were given a certain percentage, not for customers, but it was first off going to long-term care facilities. I did mention that. I wished I'd mentioned that earlier. The long-term care facilities, the ones I know so far have already gotten their first and second doses. And then the other pharmacies, they had to actually go on and through the Department of Health and sign up to be a vaccine distributor. So they looked at that, from what my understanding is, looking at the population of the county and the number of COVID cases. I think some of that, there was a formula that kind of goes into that, looking at how many. And my understanding is some of the FQHCs, federally funded community health clinics like Cherokee, they receive, they will probably start receiving like a certain amount each week. And probably the pharmacies will as well. I'm sure Walmart will. Yeah. And once they get on the rotation or the system, then we've been assured, now I say that, that we will be every week get our shipments, or they will.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Teresa.
Thank you. I did have a follow-up to that too. I know that the POA has been working with you and Winston Blazer and others working with you and potentially of setting up a POD here in the village. Do you think that is still a possibility?
Oh, I definitely do. I've been talking with Dr. Martin about that, and we I think once we get to the point of, and I think it's soon we will be there. Of course, everybody may have had it by the, the time we get to it. But in the beginning, we weren't really sure that we could even go off site. And then now it's working better that we are off site. So definitely down the road, that may be something we can do.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I don't see any other questions on YouTube chat. I do have a question for Carol, or just if she knows. I know that they had to not have their annual book sale, but you've been doing mini book sales. And I was wondering if you had a date for the next mini book sale. I don't know if Carol's on.
Well, I can tell you this: if she's not on, it will be on Teleco Life shortly.
I'm on.
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
on. Yeah. The mini books. So the first one's going to be March 27th.
Great, thanks. Is there a theme to it at all, or?
Yeah, it's going to be a combination of mysteries and gardening and Tennessee and a couple other things. A mixture. I think
And you
Mason,
hold-
they're gonna focus on mystery though.
Great. And you hold that at the library and you follow all the COVID precautions?
Oh, yeah, it's outside in the courtyard.
Super, thanks.
Okay, mhm.
Does anybody, any other speaker, anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, I'll give it back to Dennis or Ken to wrap up.
All right, Chrissy, thank you very much for that. Some great questions. And in a follow-up, if there are other questions that occur to you after this session, please feel free to email them to me or Ken or Christy, and we'll do our best to get those questions answered for you. All right, Ken, I'm going to turn it back over to you for maybe some last, some final comments.
Okay, yes, some final comments. First, I'd like to just thank all the speakers that volunteered their time to come here and update us on some important topics. Obviously, Rick Blau from the POA board, Winston Blazer, the POA CEO, Dennis Doherty, the fire chief, Carol DeForest, the public library. Yes.
I want to interrupt. I know we have our name spelled the same way. Jerry pronounces his wrong, but it's Jerry Doherty.
That's what I said. Did I say Doherty or Doherty?
You said Dennis Doherty.
Ah, okay. And then, of course, Teresa Harold coming forward with some very interesting information and very obviously timely information. I mean, I think Winston said this was 2020 was the COVID year, and obviously COVID has dominated all of last year, and it's certainly dominating this year. I'd also like to thank the people that have helped put this thing on. Dennis Doherty for planning it and acting as moderator today. And thanks for Christy for monitoring the questions from the audience. And then Beth in the background, Beth Kaburka from POA for helping organize this Zoom event and getting the speakers online. I think, just to summarize, I think obviously COVID was a super issue last year and also this year. But on the positive note, the POA staff, of all the volunteers and all the various organizations clearly stepped forward and turned what could have been an extremely bad situation and made the most out of it. And we ended the year on a very positive note, I think, in many different areas, and well positioned for 2021. So thank you for all those people doing this. And I think I'd like just to summarize and borrow something that's the President of the United States says at every State of the Union message. They always say that the state of the union is strong. I would say right now, this is all about the state of the village. And I would say the state of Tellico Village is strong. So I'll end on that and I'll turn it back over to Dennis.
Thank you, Ken. So once again, just to kind of echo some comments from Ken, can't thank the presenters and all the audience participants for joining us today. Hope you all got a good overview of what's happening in the village and most of your questions asked or answered, I should say. Our next open village meeting will be on April 22nd. We'll be using the same webinar format. While our agenda hadn't been finalized, we hope to offer some perspective in more detail on what's happening in Loudoun and Monroe counties specifically and the impacts they may have on the village. Watch our website and read the HOA Voice newsletter for more information on that. With that, I'd like to wish you all a pleasant good evening, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks again for joining